C&I Solar Market Outlook Southeast Asia. Thank you all the attendees for joining us today. C&I Market Outlook Southeast Asia will offer an in-depth overview of market trends, growth drivers, key challenges and opportunities in PV rooftop segment, and will brief you about the technological developments and market growth opportunities on the basis of the current landscape. Now, I take the pleasure to thank our sponsor, C&I Solar, for extending their immense support to organize the event. Requesting my team to start with the sponsor video of C&I Solar. Thank you, team, for playing the sponsor video. So we are having a presentation by Mr. Lim Xiong Boon, who is the head of product and marketing APAC from Trina Solar. Please share your screen, sir.
Okay, thank you. Let me share my screen.
Sure.
Okay, I hope everyone can see my screen now.
Yes, sir. Yes, sir. Please proceed.
Yeah, sure. Thanks first view for the sponsor today, and thank you to all the participants and panelists for your time join the webinar today. So I'm Lim from Trina Solar. So let me take this opportunity go through our product portfolio and also a short introduction about Trina. So this is our milestone for Trina Solar as a company. So we are founded in 1997. This year, 2022, is our 25th year anniversary. So we are proud to say that we are one of the very few very few companies that is really able to stand behind the 25-year power warranty that has been claimed by a lot of module suppliers in the market. So a few highlights. Before this, we have listed ourselves in 2020 onto the Shanghai Star Market, and in 2021 we have launched the industry first 210 Vertex module. So this is our global footprint. Another achievement by Trina was that in Q1 this year, our cumulative shipment is over 100 gigawatt on a worldwide basis. So now we have more than 100 over customers and also about 19,000 employees that is working in the Trina family. Then we are also proud that we are one of the top most bankable module supplier for 6 years in a row, ranked by Bloomberg New Energy Finance. So this is also further showing our long history in PV module supply and manufacturing. So this is our footprint in Asia Pacific. Myself, I'm based in Singapore. So over the last 4 years, we have shipped more than 13 gigawatt of solar PV modules in the Asia Pacific region. So in terms of the leading technology, in early 2020, late 2020 to early 2021, we have launched the first 210 mm ultra high power Vertex module. And following that, we also have the N-type iTalkCon products that is sold to some customers. And we also are doing active research on the advanced HJT technology, which will be our next generation solar modules. So let's just quickly recap on what has happened over the last 10 years. So you can see in terms of the power bin of a solar module, it has increased steadily about 5 to 10 watt per year before 2019. But since 2020 onwards, there was an explosive growth in terms of the power bin, almost like 50 watt per half a year. So now we are in the 670 watt era. I think very soon the 700 watt era will be coming. So in terms for the topic today, C&I rooftop markets. So from Trina, we are showcasing two major product line, which we are supplying for C&I rooftop projects. So they are our 600 watt module, the 20 series, and also our 670 watt module, the 21 series. So some of the characteristics of our high power modules. So these are the technologies that we have incorporated into Trina Vertex module. So namely, we are using the 210 mm largest wafer in the market now. And to combine with that, we introduced the non-disruptive cutting so that we can maintain the mechanical strength of the large size wafer as compared to a non-cut cell. So on top of that, with our innovative design, we have designed our module with a low VOC, which should enable you to connect more modules per string. And at the same time, we have also increased our module efficiency by optimizing the high density interconnect so that we can optimize the overall dimension of the solar module. Then to cater to the larger dimension of the module, we have also improved our frame design with a reinforced structure so that we can also achieve the required mechanical loading of 5,400 Pascal front and 2,400 Pascal back. Then besides all this, there are other innovative technologies that we have used, like our integrated delivery solution, and coming soon will be some quick installation innovative design of our mounting frames. So just a quick overview of Trina Vertex module compared to the others. So we can see over here, Trina Vertex module has one of the highest module efficiency, and also we have one of the highest power bin that is in the market now. So namely, what we are deploying is a low voltage, high current design. So you can see with a lower VOC, you can connect more modules per string, and this will help you to save your system costs. So let's look at the two major segments. So one will be a residential PV system. So this is a particular case study that we have installed and commissioned in China. So this is a small top size of about 21.6 kilowatt. So you can see on the right side, we use a 600 watt, you're using a 2-string design, and compared to a 450 watt, that's a 3-string design. So overall, we can achieve the same DC capacity and also the same DC-AC ratio. But what are the benefits when you use a higher power module? So you can see on the left itself, module power is increased. And with this increase, we can reduce the number of modules that is used in the system. And through that, we also reduce the PV cable length and also some of the mounting structures. So all this will contribute to savings in the overall system cost. So in this particular case study, we are looking at almost about US $0.009 per watt kind of savings. So similarly, we also look at a C&I rooftop system. So this is about a 1.6 megawatt system in China. So it's also using a string inverter. So this time we compare with a 545 watt. So overall, you see in the same size system, we are only using about 82 strings as compared to a 540 watt 108 strings. And in terms of the total module quantity, for this project, Trina will only need to use about 2,460, and the 545 will use about 3,024. So for the same size system, achieving a similar DC-AC ratio, you'll be able to save the cost from using less modules and also longer strings. So this is the breakdown for this case study. You can see here the cost savings mainly coming from the connectors, the PV cable length, grounding cable, some of the mounting structures. And for this 1.6 megawatt project, we are looking at a potential savings of US dollar 0.05 per watt. So besides that, because of a higher power bin, so the number of modules to install for a same size system will be considerably less based on the chart on the left. So you can see when you have less modules to install, essentially you are saving some of the labor costs and some of the installation time. So for our 20 and 21 series, this is using vertical packing. On the left, you can see these are conventional horizontal stack packing. Then the center for our ultra high power modules, this will be in the vertical placement configuration. At the same time, Trina has also come up with a stand supporter, the picture on the right, where these large dimension modules can be rested against the stand supporter at the installation site. So in terms of the container configuration, you can see that although our pallets per container are less compared to the others, but because of our higher power bin, we are able to pack more power container. So as a comparison basis, about 12% more as compared to 500. So as mentioned, Trina deploys the low voltage, high current design. So we have worked with different inverter suppliers to have a compatible model that you can use together with Trina high current modules. So this is one way of designing and connection, which we use a one string per MPPT kind of design to meet the DC-AC ratio for the distributed PV system. So on the left is a 20 kilowatt system. So we are using 2-string for the 2 MPPT and with a DC ratio of 1.27. Now on the right is a 100 kilowatt system where we're using a 100 kilowatt inverter where there is a 10 MPPT and we can reach about 1.44 DC-AC ratio. So in terms of inverter compatibility, we are compatible with the major inverter suppliers. But if you do have any inquiries or any question, do feel free to reach out to Trina and we can help you to assess the best design for your system. At the same time, we have also come up with this Trina PV Design Tool website. You can note the address of the website where you can enter the website and then check the various compatibility with the different inverter and suppliers. So at Trina here, we strongly believe that the ultra high power bin 600 watt plus is the future and will be increasing adoption in the market. So overall, we have about 20 gigawatt of shipping record for Trina. And these are some of the project references that we have already installed in China for this residential rooftops and also factory rooftops using our 600 watt module. Similarly, in overseas, we have also supplied in the ASEAN region, Thailand, also in Singapore. So this is our full Trina product family. So on the left, we have our Vertex S, which is our mainly targeted, which can be used for some of the smaller residential rooftops. And in between, we have our 18, 19, 21 series, which can be used for C&I, and also the 21 series, which can be used for C&I and also ground mounted projects. Okay, thank you everyone for the time and listening to the webinar today. Yeah, back to the thank you.
Thank you so much, sir, for your insightful presentation. Let us proceed with our next presentation by Mr. Eric Xu Hong Chen, who is the APAC Business Development Manager from Huawei. Please continue, sir.
Hi, good afternoon, everybody. Thank you, Priya. Let me share my screen. Can you see the screen now?
Yes, sir, we can see. Please proceed.
Okay, thank you for the opportunity and the invitation to this webinar. I would like to present to you Huawei Digital Power. So we will cover 4 topics on this area, which is Huawei overview, Huawei Digital Power Smart Solution, what are the considerations that we need to do for LCOE, as well as how Huawei brings safety further. So without further ado, let me share with you our latest video. Hold for a while. Sorry. Can you all hear the sound?
2021, Huawei Digital Power converges power electronics and digital technologies, delving deeper into digital power for a greener world. Huawei Fusion Solar Smart PV business is growing quickly, helping generate solar power all around the world. We integrate digital, PV, and energy storage, enabling smarter solar power and storage. Settled 3,000 meters above sea level, China's Qinghai province is the birthplace of Huawei Fusion Solar Smart PV. Here, Huanghe Hydropower Development built the world's largest renewable energy base using Huawei technology. 6.4 million square meters, 860,000 PV modules. Dongwei and Huawei created a new way to generate clean power alongside green aquaculture. Our Fusion Solar Smart PV solution uses potential-induced degradation, suppression, and residual current device technologies. It prevents PID from affecting PV modules in humid environments, such as floating solar plants, and protects O&M personnel from the risk of electric shock. At Singapore's floating PV plant, the biggest challenge is corrosion in a hypersaline environment. Huawei Smart PV controller is made of rust-proof aluminum plates with highly weather-resistant surface coating. The product passes the most rigorous IEC 60068 salt spray test, making it reliable even under these harsh conditions. There are numerous utility-scale plants around the world that use idle resources such as marshes, hills, and lakes. Huawei works with global partners on the journey to a green and bright future. Distributed PV is popular around the world, and the rooftops of large buildings are ideal for PV installation. All over the world, from snowy Scandinavia to islands in the Indian Ocean, schools are generating green energy. Installing rooftop PVs in schools isn't just a great way to generate clean power, but also teaches students about environmental protection through concrete actions. Santiago de Chile Airport is one of the largest in South America, looking to become more energy self-sufficient. It uses the Huawei Fusion Solar Smart PV solution for highly efficient, safe, and reliable power generation. Ordinary citizens can also generate clean energy through residential PV. Huawei Fusion Solar Residential Smart PV solution harnesses the abundant sunlight in the Mediterranean to supply energy to Italian households. Huawei's smart PV controller and optimizers are installed on residential rooftops in Lahore, Pakistan. They yield 5% more energy. The PV self-consumption rate exceeds 85% using Huawei's Smart String Energy Storage System. As more than 140 countries join the Carbon Neutrality Initiative, energy storage is critical. Shenzhen International Low Carbon City is China's first nearly zero energy facility that uses Huawei's Energy Cloud and C&I Smart PV solutions, slated to become a best practice among global carbon peak and carbon neutrality projects. In Japan, from the extremely cold city of Eniwa, Hokkaido, to the humid Koyu district in Miyazaki, Huawei Fusion Solar Smart PV and ESS solution outperforms expectations. In June 2021, a quarter of China's counties were the first to begin a county-wide rollout of PV projects. Huawei actively participates in the projects and helps Xiangcheng County build a benchmark pilot. Green industries and solar-powered homes are the way of the future.
Okay, there's a short video regarding Huawei. So basically, Huawei is a leading ICT infrastructure and smart devices producer. We currently have about 197 employees worldwide. Half of our employees actually from R&D department. And at the moment, we are ranking number 44 under Global 500. Just to share with you just now the video, right? We're actually covering the digital fusion solar roadmap, where we cover from the initial where we started in 2012. We actually to have a total shipment of 4 gigawatt. At the moment, as of today, 2021, end of the year, we actually ship up for 200 gigawatt of fusion solar solutions to the market. Okay, apart from just doing what we're doing on the solar inventions, we actually also involved in development of global standard and facilitates sustainable development for the PV industry. We actually have competency center in Asia Pacific area, which is located in Thailand. The recent new deployment will be launched in 2022. Quarter one will be the Thailand EIT fast shutdown standards. This is where our involvement in. There are other more developments that we are doing around the Asia Pacific region. So for Huawei solution, I think it's very simple. We cover two segments. One system that is below the 100 kilowatt peak. At the moment, for all the inverters that is below 100 kilowatt peak system, we are actually supported with optimizer. As you know, that certain requirements for MNC company now you require optimizer as well as rapid shutdown. This is the new features that we bring into the table to support the industry requirements. At the same time, if you're looking at a system that is larger, we have a smart 2100 KTR M1 Pro which support AFCI functions. So for consideration itself, I think for all the C&I market segment, we always look into LCOE, where we need to maximize the yield, reducing the installation and maintenance costs. So there are three main portfolio segments that we need to actually cover. One is BOS cost, which is the initial cost that you are actually in deployment. Then at the same time, we'll always look into after energize the system, where the O&M cost will come in, how we can reduce this cost as well. So for Huawei itself, we actually incorporate our smart PV optimizer. This part will actually helps you to optimize your area of limitation, especially when it comes to C&I. Because in C&I, right, shading is always an enemy of the system size that you can install. So with optimizer, right, you can actually maximize the roof area without worrying much about fan, aircon, fencing, or any shading issue, because you can actually segregate the string weakness module from the rest of the other modules. So in terms of our smart PV optimizer as well, you can actually have a better string configuration, which every string you can support up to 10 kilowatt per string, which will actually eventually you actually have less wiring and connectors to be installed. At the same time, it will actually give you a better or higher DC and AC ratio. PID is one of the consideration that we also built in with all the inverters. So PID itself, the main objective of this is actually to increase your yield from time to time. So for O&M portion, right, Huawei bringing safety further is basically on AFCI. If you're aware that AFCI do happen in large-scale solar, in C&I, and also it can be on residential, because any arc faults that's happening, right, it can reach up to temperature of 3000 and it can cause fire. In certain region, this has become a major issue. So for Huawei itself, right, we actually have AFCI built in. In this video itself, you can see AFCI function that is enabled and AFCI function that is disabled. So if you do not have AFCI function available in the inverter, right, you can actually cause fire. Apart from that, Huawei philosophy is always have inverter touch-free, meaning that you have less maintenance. In older models, you can see there's an LCD in Huawei inverter, but at the moment, the new version, you don't have fuse, you don't have LCD, and basically there's no button for you to touch, everything online. So these are the features that we are building into Huawei inverter, and moving forth, we will actually work on inverter that is touch-free, which later we'll touch about IV curve, the features that we have already embedded, and also on deployment. So for IV curve, right, O&M is actually very difficult to do, especially when you're having a larger system or more system that's deployed throughout the country. So in conventional method, when you are doing a diagnosis, you actually need, even for a small system, you need a day to diagnose whether the system is functioning properly or not. And usually when you do maintenance, right, you will do sampling tests. So it's not 100% test on the system. What the IV curve can actually help you to do is that everything is online. It improves the safety requirements that you needed. So it can do 100% string scanning. And the diagnosis can generate a report for you in less than 10 minutes for a 100 megawatt systems. Okay. These are some sample projects that we have. We have already done a full IV curve diagnosis. So it actually helps to reduce the failure rate by 4.7%. It gives you a better visibility. It gives you much easier maintenance planning. And it also helps you to troubleshoot issues that before it becoming worse. So for IV curve that we actually have a bankability report also from Watson bankability reports. So it's actually to let you know that whatever that we have done, there is a certain supports that we confirm that it actually effectively will help the customer to get a better results. That's Emma on my presentation. Pass back to you.
Thank you so much, sir, for your insightful presentation. I request my team to play the sponsor video of C&I Solar.
我们这个搞工商业主要考虑用大功率组件，到最后了解到你们天河生产这品牌，也是品牌很好，对功率很大，正适合我们这个工商业的这个生产安装。用大功率组件能节省很多成本，节省安装量，包括起价，这个线缆等等。对于业主方来说，这个我们投资这个600瓦的这光伏组件，能提高发电量，增加企业收益。
选择以后，这个光伏啊，当时以后也考察了好多单位， 因为一是一户天河这也是大的品牌，综合考虑选择了天河。
From residential to factory, from 400 watt plus to 600 watt plus, ultra high power, fast installation, worry-free for grid connection. Trina Vertex distributed products have been used in more and more application scenarios. Solar energy for all. Trina Solar makes the future green and beautiful.
Thank you so much, team, for playing the video. So now it's time to begin with our much awaited panel discussion, which is on C&I Solar Market Outlook Southeast Asia. And to discuss this, we have in our panel with us Mr. Milan Koev from Hexagon P, who is the moderator for the session, Mr. Eric Xiu Hongshen from Huawei, Mr. Xiongbu Lim from Trina Solar Asia Pacific, Mr. Samresh Kumar from SkyX Solar, and Mr. Lorenzo Mancini, who is from Total Energies Renewable Distribution Generation. Now I request my moderator Milan sir to take the discussion ahead and welcoming all the panelists to the screen.
Thanks, Priyanshi. Very good afternoon, everyone. Very good crowd here. I guess you guys did a very good job in marketing this event, and very good panelists. So the topic is C&I in Southeast Asia. And just before I switch over to everyone to introduce themselves, a bit of background on what we're actually going to talk about. It seems it's actually obvious that nowadays rooftop solar is not the better choice, but actually the only choice for deploying capital in Southeast Asia in solar. Right now, as we speak, there is absolutely no utility scale development or rather execution taking place in Southeast Asia. Unfortunately, I would say, but that's the situation. Vietnam is complete halt on auctions. DPPA is probably coming very soon. But apart from that, it's only the C&I stuff. Philippines is a similar situation. There is no utility scale stuff going on. Indonesia, there is nothing big apart from a couple of projects that are on LOI stage, more or less. Malaysia is waiting for the next LSS to come online, and Singapore has no land. And I guess those are the countries that are probably the top 5 markets for C&I. And I'm very lucky to have panelists that can cover, each of them can bring a very, very specific knowledge in each of those markets. And I guess we can turn this panel much deeper into each of those geographies, because for everyone, it's very interesting what's going to happen next. We're not talking about the big 5 here, those countries that I mentioned, simply because the annual installation is probably much less than a gigawatt for rooftop. But essentially, these are the biggest markets, or these are the markets that we're dealing with right now. And we hopefully have a new entrant, a new kid on the block, which is going to be Indonesia. Everyone is hoping so, at least. When it comes, we're going to cover that as well. But from the presentations that I've seen, before we start, couple of amazing things, and I'll start with, I'll ask everyone to introduce themselves, and I'll ask a question. But starting with Eric, how did you guys achieve 62% market share? I guess even Apple will be very, very jealous of what you guys did.
I think it's the consistencies that we're having, and also the qualities that's from time we developed the inverter since 2012. So with the trademarks, with also the roadmaps, with the competency, with how we actually helps on certain regulations and grid codes, I think that's where we bring our market share to where we are now.
Amazing. So quick round of introductions. We have arguably the best inverter manufacturer. We have arguably the best module manufacturer. We have arguably 2 of the best developers. That's very arguable, but it is what it is. So let's start with Lorenzo, please.
Yes. Thank you for the arguably best developer, because I think that's very arguable. There's quite a number of them. No, I think you summed up the the market very well. I would add Thailand, maybe that wasn't mentioned, because Thailand, I think, is also on the cards, even if it's a very developed market compared to the others. So there's a lot going on there, but it's not really as new market as the others are. What is interesting, I think, is that first of all, there is no utility projects coming along. Maybe the PPA in Vietnam, if that can be called a utility or a utility scale, let's say, size project. You know, in the other markets there isn't. And what's also interesting, I think, is that one way or the other, most of the utilities are frankly pushing back against solar to some extent. I mean, in words and in declarations and publicly, they are all for solar, for renewables and so on. In practice, not so much, I think. No. There is a host of reasons for that, technical, commercial, political, whatever, but that's the reality, I think, at this point. You know? Yes, I forgot to introduce myself. Sorry, I'm Lorenzo. I'm from Total Energies Renewables Southeast Asia. I'm based in Singapore. We are part of Total Energies, and we are the renewable arm of Total Energies. We're active across all these countries in Southeast Asia and India and Japan out of Singapore. Then also other countries in Middle East and Europe out of Dubai or France, but this is our head hub for the Southeast Asia region.
Samresh, over to you. SkyX, who did very well in Vietnam. What's next?
Yeah, sure. Thank you, Milan, and good afternoon, everybody. Very happy to be here and discussing, sharing thoughts. My name is Samresh Kumar. I'm the Chairman CEO of SkyX Solar, which is a rooftop solar company focused on the C&I market and focused in Vietnam. We are owned by Vina Capital and EDF Renewables. Vina Capital is one of the largest asset management firm in Vietnam. It manages around $3.7 billion of capital. And EDF Renewables is the #1 renewable energy company from Europe. We currently own, operate around 70 megawatt of rooftop solar power systems in Vietnam. And we plan to develop a few hundred more in the next few years.
Awesome. Priyanshi, do we have still Boon Lim here on the call? Yes.
Sorry, sir, I couldn't get that.
Do we have Trina still on the call?
Yeah, hi. Yeah, hi, I'm back. Sorry, I have some technical issue. Yes.
Perfect. So, Boon Lim, what is your market share?
Sorry, market share in terms of?
In terms of modules sold on the market.
I think as of 2021, Trina is ranked #2 in terms of the for 2021. Yes.
Okay, so you're far behind Huawei, but I would say that Trina is probably one of the top 5. I guess for sure it's been so, and it will remain like this. I guess you did quite an extensive presentation already, so we're gonna skip that. I'm gonna start with the questions. Lorenzo, let's start a little bit with the situation in Philippines. What's happening? It was once one of the biggest markets in Southeast Asia. Then it became from hero to zero. Now things are picking up more or less on the C&I segment. What was the situation?
Yeah, I think that part of it is definitely explainable with the regulation or the utilities. I mean, whether they want to support or put in place regulation which enables or not rooftop solar. No? Given in any case that the Philippines is, from a certain point of view, more complicated market than others. I think it's more complicated than Vietnam, for example, or Indonesia, for climatic reasons, if anything else, because I mean it's prone to hurricanes, it's prone to typhoons and so on, which can basically devastate a rooftop system, especially if the underlying asset, in the sense the physical asset, the factory, is not very strong or very robust to start with. Okay, so it's not necessarily a very favorable environment. That being said, the regulatory environment is even less favorable to some extent, in the sense that it's I think we all agree that as far as rooftop developers, we can work with any kind of regulation as long as we have long-term visibility. The regulation is in place and it stays the same for a number of years, no? Because all our projects have a lifespan of 15, 20 years, even longer than that. We can't work with a situation where the regulation changes every 2 or 3 years, because most of the customers are going to say, you know what, this is very good, but let me wait until next year and see if maybe they introduce the feed-in tariff, maybe I can export the excess, maybe whatever, no? And I think that Philippines, from that point of view, is a case in point. I mean, we have been doing quite well last year, after 1 year, which was more difficult. The outlook in terms of projects in the pipeline, megawatts to build is quite good. But there is a lot of uncertainty in terms of what the regulator is allowing to do. To that, I would add that we are all used to developing a project, but also selling our project to the customer in terms of savings that you have against the grid price. So accrued saving over the contract duration. No? This is very straightforward, let's say, in countries where the grid price is a certain number and it's fixed. In Philippines, it's not like that. So basically, we are talking about savings, and it's questionable at better. Not that you have savings, but how much savings you have, because simply what exactly is the grid price that you're paying? There was the elections yesterday in the Philippines. Now it looks like there's a new president. Let's see what the new president is going to do, because that might overturn everything all over again, I think. No?
We have a new president, which is a little bit of a controversy in itself. But essentially, I think what is question mark right now is whether the entire administration will be changed again. That has happened previous 5 years ago. Do you see the same thing coming?
I think it's difficult to say. It's a bit strange, the politics, because it's a new president, but it's not really a new presidential family. No, it's very much in the dynasty which has been ruling the country for a long time. How much that will be basically absorbed or intermingled with the outgoing president, and how much that might affect the administration and what kind of choices they might make, it's big questions. I agree. It might decide to accelerate the adoption of renewables or not, because at this point, I think, and this Samresh is probably qualified to speak, what's happening is that there is a lot of international corporates, which are basically lobbying all the governments to give them access to renewable energy. This is very visible in Vietnam, but it's the same in Indonesia and the Philippines, and they are threatening to move their foreign direct investments from one country to another if they don't get it. And I think that the country which is more is quicker and is more ready to take advantage of the situation, to do something about this, will take advantage of the situation. Obviously, it's not just a question of passing a law or regulation. It's much more complicated, because it needs the infrastructure to be built, and it needs a host of things. But it's probably going to become a situation where different countries which are eager to host big corporates manufacturing sites are using this as a negotiating tool against the governments.
Thank you. Samresh, what's happening in Vietnam? EVN is now not connecting new projects, particularly in the south. Do you see any movement very soon?
Yeah, to be honest, what has happened in Vietnam is in the solar and renewable energy space is very similar to what happens generally in other sectors in Vietnam, right? In the last 2.5, 3 years, 2019, 2020, there was a significant development of solar and wind power, and 2021, right? Which is much more, probably 10, 20 times more than what was planned in the PDP 7, 20 times more. So, which means that, the grid is over congested, and, the development has overtaken what was planned. So now over the last year or so, it's been a lull, and, people are, developers, everybody is waiting for clear regulations to come out, And in the absence of that, different provinces are taking their own view. So instead of having a very centralized policy, which is, which filters down to all the provinces, and it's a common policy, different provinces are taking different approaches. Just for an example, whether construction permit is required for rooftop solar or not. I mean, that's that's bizarre, which is come out. It's not final, but hopefully that will not be the case. But some provinces are saying, okay, you need construction license for rooftop solar, right? So it's a lull. But the fact of the matter is that there is immense demand and supply, right? Corporates are wanting renewable energy. They want to progress on the sustainability path, and driven by their customers, driven by people and so on, right? And from supply side, arguably the best developers here and our competitors as well, where we are in this sustainability initiative. We have the capital resources and the willingness to deploy it, right? None of us need incentive from the government, right? We don't need any feed-in tariffs, right? It is commercially attractive to deploy. All we need is basically a clear policy. And it's like the girl and the boy is willing to marry, right? And the parents have to, come around and, give their blessing. So just waiting for the blessings to come, I think it's a lull in Vietnam, but as soon as the clear policy is announced, again, I expect a significant boom in this coming.
I think this with the parents of the boy and the girl is more towards India. But in Vietnam, it's the girl's parents that are asking what is the boy bringing to the table, I guess. And right now, what I see is significant demand for more and more discounts from the PPAs, from the customers. And I think we're moving towards a direction of Thailand, where the whole PPA thing became extremely competitive to levels where 40-50% discounts of tariff. How do you see this happening in Vietnam?
I think that's a very interesting point, Milan, which you raised. And the fact of the matter is that given in Vietnam, there are, I would say, 4 or 5 deep-pocketed players with wanting to invest, and it has got very competitive. It's actually not driven a lot by the customer, right? The customer is okay with 20% discount in the South, right? Because for a megawatt, 20% versus 30% is a few $1,000s, right? Per year. It's not a lot. It doesn't make or break the company. But the competitors are hungry because there is, capital wanting to deploy. And, there is, because of competition, one is giving, higher discounts and so on. And a lot of the times, actually, we've sort of said we would not give more, because in some cases, discounts have increased to 30% discount, maybe slightly more, 35%, which 20-year PPA, because if you take how the EVN prices would move in the next 20 years, taking some replacement costs of panels and so on, if you put in a lot of all these assumptions, then it's very, very difficult to make money in the long term. Short term, in Excel, it would look great. You can make 9-10% in Excel. Financial model, yes. But taking those, variabilities into account, like, for example, EVN price, now, whether it's 3%, 4% per annum, will it increase for the next 20 years? 10 years, okay. What will happen after 10 years? Nobody knows, right? So I think it's the aggressiveness from the developers which has increased the discount, not from the customers. Customers are okay with 20% saving. They're more than happy. Without putting in any dollars, they get savings and they get renewable energy, right? So I think it's more from the developers.
Fair enough. Eric, I want to ask about Malaysia. What's happening there on the rooftop space?
Malaysia, basically, currently they're still looking into net energy metering, where the quota, I think, still balance about 200 megawatt, about there. But again, a lot of industry actually moving into self-consumption because there's a limitation when you come to net energy metering installation. Then when you're looking into most of the MNC company that is in Malaysia, they will prefer to go for what you call larger scale project, then NEM would not meet their requirements. Then apart from that, I think Malaysia is still very intensified. As long as the company are paying tax, if they do a project without a power purchase agreement, they can still enjoy up to 48% of the tax rebates. So for local company, they will go for this, but for the MNC, they will basically go for PPA solutions. Like what Samresh mentioned, that the rates of the PPA, you'll be surprised. Sometimes when you're bidding for the project, the procurement of the company will tell you that this is the rate I want, which sometimes is already 40% of the market rate. Somehow we have no idea how they got the price. Yeah, but in Malaysia itself, for rooftop, it's still moving.
I think Malaysia is one of the countries, together with Singapore, that delivers the lowest returns on investments on projects. And there is still a lot of competition despite that. What is the driver?
I think the main driver is ESG deployment requirement from most of the company, environmental, social, and governance. Even like in Malaysia, when you're looking about a listed company, the Bursa already enforced there's a requirement of ESG to be deployed. I think solar is the most significant, where you can see once you install, there are certain points that can be given, apart from just other governance that's need for them to fulfill. Yeah.
Okay, Boon Lim, you're based out of Singapore. I'm sure you have a lot of discussions with the players in Singapore, the two players in Singapore. So, do you see how do you see the C&I market here? Is it going somewhere or is going nowhere? Because most of the, I mean, Singapore is not a manufacturing hub anyway, so most of the industrial and commercial business has already been solarized, or at least has been already in discussions with with those players. But how do you see the market here?
Yeah, thanks, Milan, for the question. So I think generally, because of the global trend of decarbonization, so definitely, in terms of Singapore country policy-wise, they are also looking at how to deploy more of this renewable energy within the country. So I think for the factory rooftops, there is still ongoing projects. There are still some potential, different pipelines that we can still look forward to. And in terms of the public housing, I think there's ongoing projects that has been around. Now we are at, I think, Solar Nova 6 already. Then on top of all this, the government itself is also looking at offshore supply. So I think you might have heard of the different tenders that was out there looking at offshore supply from the nearby countries as far as even Australia. So going forward, I believe even for Singapore, although Singapore is still a small country, but there should be still quite a good amount of solar deployment in Singapore itself. Yeah.
Talk a little bit about Thailand as well, in the absence of anyone that is particularly focused on that market, but essentially very competitive, very mature. Probably the biggest discount rates among Southeast Asia. I guess in that case, driven by the customers. Correct me if I'm wrong.
Yeah, I think it's true. And while it's probably driven by customers, but because also the customers they find that they have 10 or 15 different offers on the table. So basically, the only reference that they can compare the offers with is the price. This is something that we always try to basically move the customers away from, not because we don't want the price competition, but because if everything is reduced down to the price, then you forget all the complexity that there is behind in terms of HSE parameters, safety, the technology, what modules you're using, what inverters you're using, and so on. Okay, it's a 20 years contract that you should not just decide based on the decimal points of discount that you get. But unfortunately, that's very often the case, I think. It's more the case with maybe the smaller players, because the big multinational companies probably see a little bit beyond just the pure pricing. Also because very often they are not doing it just for the savings. They're doing it also for the sustainability. So they see the concern, or they see the logic that they want to be sure that what they're getting is worthwhile for the duration of the contract and beyond. And it's not just the short-term savings. Also because, like I think was mentioned before, it's true. We all know, I mean, you can make an Excel model to project incredible savings or no savings just by twisting a couple of parameters. This is something that everyone has seen, and is something which is in some cases distorting the market, I think. Because if you just look at the savings and then it accumulates over 20 years, the numbers can be huge. You
know? How is the market going to evolve from here? Is there still enough space to continue the growth, or it's more or less done?
Well, I think that, I mean, I think we're probably expecting a more or less across Southeast Asia, a little bit more clarity in terms of regulation, but also I think what's going to happen maybe this year or maybe beginning of next year is that the grid prices are going to go up. This is going to happen everywhere. I mean, in Vietnam and Indonesia, substantially and very soon, because, well, I mean, the cost of electricity has gone up all over the place, all over the world, for very clear, practical, dramatic reasons, if you like. There are some countries where it's structurally below the generation cost. Indonesia is an example. I mean, PLN sells electricity at corporates to industrial use at 20% less than what it's the generation cost of the electricity, and is subsidized by the government to the tune of $3 or $4 billion every year. The government has already said that it doesn't intend to continue doing that. And the only reason that they haven't allowed PLN to increase the electricity price is because they are afraid that it might slow down the economy. But eventually they will have to do it. The same applies in Vietnam, but same applies maybe on a smaller scale across all countries. So there are projects which maybe, I'm thinking of the north of Vietnam, where basically maybe you can only have, I don't know, 5%, 10% discount off the grid. So some customers say, I don't know if it's really worth it. But the moment that the grid price starts going up by 15 or 20%, it opens up a completely new market, I think.
Fair enough. The reference to Vietnam is good. I guess Samresh can pick up from here. You said that basically the discount is a function of whether the EVN price will grow. But essentially, EVN is losing money, and you know that has been for decades, heavily subsidized. And in order to change this, the only way is to really raise the retail prices on the big picture, because that affects all of us involved in the C&I. The gap between retail price and solar LCOE grows, and the larger it grows, the larger our market will grow. But in Vietnam, particularly, this gap is particularly, as Lorenzo mentioned, in northern Vietnam. It's not huge. Now, assuming that Bun Lim from Trina can give you a very good price for the panels for the next 12 months, fixed, and EVN really has to increase the prices very, very soon, would this open a lot more potential market?
Yeah, I think the North market in Vietnam is a big market, right? Because there are large multinational companies with large factories there. So when we and other developers are looking for clients there, one is looking for two things. One, whether the factories can consume a lot of power. So large factories obviously pass that consideration. And second, whether they are creditworthy. And again, a lot of the companies there are creditworthy. On the discount, even 5-10% discount, which can be offered, is still actually, the clients are saving money and without putting in any dollars, and they're getting renewable energy, right? So it is still pretty deal for them. And once the EVN prices increase, then it's 10-15% discount, which I think is pretty attractive. And a lot of the companies, from Korea, Japan, and then so on, have expressed interest, in going down that path. Panel prices actually, that is an assumption that 12 months, Huawei or Trina can, freeze the price. I don't think, and maybe Eric can confirm, they can't freeze even a quarter. So that's an assumption which is a big one, which can't take. But the fact of the matter is that, one can still give a discount to factories in the north, and they can still save money. So yeah, I think, one can do a lot there.
Kunlim, can you predict the price for the next 12 months? What is going to happen?
That's a difficult question, but I think the current sentiments, I will say that we don't anticipate there will be any drastic reduction in the price, at least from the module side. So we hope that it can remain stable, but given the current situation, there might be unavoidable scenarios where price might continue to creep up. Yeah.
Because why?
I think it's a mixture of reasons. So mainly, in terms of the China demand. So as you know, China itself still has a huge target, so it's going to consume a lot of the supply.
This is until June, right? End of June.
Yes, correct. But overall, we are still looking at the next 5 years plan from even at the China market itself. And also, I think in terms of the supply itself is still not fully developed to meet the overall demand in the market.
Fair enough. Okay, I guess Eric, one of the most important functions of having successful projects is when those projects overperform. And you guys are the key for power conversion, and everything that is generated goes through inverters. So you must be on top in terms of technical issues on the C&I space. What could be the recommendation that you would give to developers who want their projects to overperform?
Okay. Thanks, Milan. Just a very simple one. If any inverter that you choose, make sure that the features of IV curve is available, because that will actually can tell you whether your design is optimized, whether the installation or whether the things that you have deployed is functional properly. Then at the same time also, you can have it to reduce certain of your cost for O&M as well. And that's one of the features. And also when you come to IV curve, right, it's always talk about a big, huge database center that you need. What Huawei did was basically we have our own cloud system where we store all the data, and we have these AI functions to actually analyze the data for you. So this is actually a very key important where Huawei actually combined with this mobile technologies, database technologies that enables us to do this. So if you're looking into how to leverage on all these methods, right, IV curve function is compulsory in the future. You cannot run away.
Do you often receive requests from developers who want to replace inverters in 10 years' time after extended warranty expires?
Huawei itself, we actually do another thing extra, is that sometimes even the project that deploy wasn't actually using our product. We actually do after deployment studies to see whether what was claimed functionally perform or not. And from that itself, we actually use this to improve ourselves and also help customer to get what they have already planned in. In terms of replacement wise, we don't have that frequent, but that is one of the things. We actually use a lot of this AI technology to foresee what can happen before it happens. So without that, if you're using a manual way of actually troubleshooting inverter, it can go crazy. Even a small, simple 1 megawatt system, you have probably 9 or about 10 inverters that you need to look through. And if you're using old methods, one by one, you go and troubleshoot, one by one, you go and check. It is actually very time consuming, and human error tends to happen because when you're troubleshooting one, it's very easy. When you have multiple sites of probably 5 mega at different location and you ask the same person to go and troubleshoot, and I can tell you the human error is actually very high. So yeah, there's something that you need to look into. And for Huawei itself, I think for replacement wise, we do have extended warranty up to 20 years. But in terms of building confidence level, right, we do after installation, we do troubleshooting, we do checking, and from time to time also we publish if there's any issue that's happening in our portal as well, so that people can pick up and learn by themselves and see whether this thing might happen to them or not.
Do you think string inverters will completely overtake the entire space and central inverters will more or less die off at any point in time?
Because string inverter, you can do more things. Because when you talk about IV curve, right, you need to troubleshoot by string level. So that is what it gives the advantage over central inverter.
But the price delta is still there, I suppose.
Yeah, the price is still there, but you see the adoption of string inverter is getting more and more. Because after sales service is much easier. For central inverter, I think you need a professional or the company itself to go and troubleshoot. But string inverter, you can get anybody to actually do it, as long as they're qualified and trained.
Okay, Lorenzo, you guys have, Total has projects all around Southeast Asia. What are the most common challenges that you guys are dealing with, technically, legally, financially? I guess financially you don't have troubles, but technically, how many rooftops, for example, do you have to reinforce?
Yeah, that's typically one happens quite often, I think. And I think that it's a technical issue, but also because very often the customer is not aware of the condition of the roof. So he doesn't realize that it needs reinforcement. Maybe the drawings are not available, or maybe that the roof itself is not the same as it's supposed to be on the drawings. No, this is quite a common situation. Then I think, yes, it's a bit of, I think we all went through the phase where the module price increased now quite drastically, and it was very difficult to either to absorb that or to justify that to the customer, because the common assumption was that the module price would just go down always, and then it stopped and it started going up. So that was a bit of a shock. Now I think what's interesting for us, I mean, what's one of the challenges that we are finding is this new regulation. I was going to ask Bonchong about it in India, whereby only Indian modules are possible to be used for Indian projects. Now, is it a protectionist, purely political move, or is there some logic behind it?
Bunlim, do you want to comment on this? I don't think he wants to.
It's a sensitive political issue.
Or maybe he's not allowed to.
Yes, exactly.
Yeah.
No, other than that, I think, yes, I mean, permitting is, we all have the same issues. Now, permitting is always a challenge, because in the end, it's not so straightforward where it falls under, who is responsible for it, if it is the utility company. Okay, then if it is a construction permit in Indonesia, in Vietnam, for instance, but a generation permit in Indonesia or whatever. And I think that it's still a very challenging environment, specifically because the challenges are all over the place, and they are completely different from project to project. No? That's what makes it so interesting. I think it's very rare to find a project which is very straightforward with no problems, or a project which is exactly the same as one you've done before. Actually, never happens, I think. No? So that's part of the beauty of it, from my point of view.
Cool. Samraj, similar view for Vietnam?
Yeah, I mean, in terms of challenges.
Yes.
Yeah, I mean, there are challenges, of course, and the Milan, obviously, it as well, because these projects are small, as rooftop solar, 1 megawatt, 2 megawatt, 3 megawatt. So I think one key challenge also is because it becomes very high bandwidth heavy, right? Instead of doing 100 megawatt project, we've got to do 30, 40 projects, right, to reach 100 megawatt. And each project, there are multiple steps to be done. So, and in the environment when the regulations are not very clear. So every time, the different provinces, as I said, are right now taking approaches which they think is right in a vacuum when the central policy is not there. But hopefully, that would be that situation would change. Hopefully sooner than later, in the next few months. But the good thing is we are in a sector, and that's why I feel thankful about that. We still are in a sector which is a sunrise sector. There is a lot of demand, so we still have clients which are very, very interested. It's just making sure that we take care of these challenges and surmount them.
Hopefully you're right. Bunlim, efficiency plays a big role for C&I panels. Can you guys make sure that next time you decide to raise the price, you also raise the efficiency? So at least you say, okay, this is why we're doing it. How does the Trina roadmap look like to get to, let's say, 1 kilowatt peak module anytime soon? 60 cell.
Yeah, Milan, you are asking very difficult questions. I think in terms of the module roadmap itself, before we can further increase, I think in terms of the technology-wise, N-type will become a consideration probably. Yeah, following that, HJT will also be the next consideration. Once we are able to equalize on the cost itself compared to the current mono-PERC P-type models. So I think for rooftop itself, yeah, we understand that there's a limited space. At the same time, we also the developers are also concerned on the returns. So which is why in terms of our current portfolio, we are still strongly promoting the higher power bins up on the top, which will still help our customers to save the cost and also get a better return on their system. Yeah, I think for the pricing wise, it's really difficult to make a judgment, because of the many external factors like I mentioned earlier, like one from China, like even in the current Ukraine war, which is driving prices up in Europe itself. And given they recognize of the sort of like energy crisis that's happening, so definitely renewable will be getting much more attention, and do foresee be having good demand for this kind of renewables installation.
Good. I guess time for final remarks before I give back to Priyanshi for questions of the audience. But Lorenzo, and I guess the question here is really how do you see the future of C&I Solar in Southeast Asia? Or anything else you may want to say?
I think that there is some movement towards other solutions. I mean, towards utility scale, towards offsite PPAs, the import project for Singapore, the regional grid eventually maybe, but it's all things which are 5 or 10 years down the road. The import project in Singapore, it's very, very interesting, very, very challenging, but it's not going to come online before 2027, if then. So I think that to some extent it's a bit similar to what happened for the DPPA in Vietnam. Now there is corporate customers which were sitting there waiting, yes, but I'm not going to bother with the rooftop solar because the DPPA is going to start. And that was like that in 2019, in 2020, in 2021. They could have done the rooftop solar system 3 years ago without any cost, any investment, and would have had an advantage, no? So I think that my message would still be that in most cases, assuming that the corporate has, let's say, a reasonable certainty of staying in the same location, because obviously if that's not the case, then it's impossible to do an installation. rooftop is something that they should address and do immediately without even thinking too much about it, because it's not in contrast and it's not against any other addition that you can do further on in terms of DPPA, in terms of whatever else. But it's a start, and it's something that is an important show of commitment to sustainability, but also gets company to come to terms with how it works, how the green energy works, but also how the REX mechanism works, for example, which is something that, and then eventually the carbon tax as it becomes introduced, which is in any case something that all corporates have to get used to and have to start working with. So sometimes I really have difficulty understanding why the customers is there thinking about it, or maybe wasting a year or a year and a half trying to squeeze another 0.5% discount, when it's one of those situations. If you have done it a year ago, you would have saved much more money than you can try to get by having a further discount here now. I admit, I mean, I see it from the point of view of the developer, but it seems a given to me sometimes, and it's difficult that it's difficult to understand that the customer don't see it the same way.
You're right. I guess it's the opportunity loss, but it's also the commitment that stops a lot of people from, doing something very long term. Yeah, I guess all around Southeast Asia is pretty much similar. Samresh?
Yeah, sure. I think, just to add, again, we looked at the Vietnam market, and just looking at the industrial, roof space, there's more than 200,000 hectares of space. And when we analyze and went deeper, we feel that around 20,000 hectares of that, one can build rooftop solar, right? Given the roof structure, quality, their consumption of power and so on, which means around 20 gigawatts of rooftop solar power can be built, right? This is not taking into account new industrial parks which are getting built as well. So that will add on to the potential capacity. The real industrial rooftop solar probably in my mind is around 1.5 to 2 gigawatt in Vietnam, right? Which means around 18 gigawatt plus can be developed, right? Which is a lot. It doesn't require additional land. It doesn't require, additional transmission line and so on. So there is immense opportunity for, the developers to put in. I don't think the developers should, compete so aggressively and give 30-35% discount and kill themselves because there are a lot of those costs. So that is why a lot of the times actually, my team and I have said no to, we would rather not do a deal where we might lose money after 5 years. But I think there is enough opportunity for a lot of us to build up.
Fair enough. I guess, yes, there is significant, very aggressive developers, but I guess it's also our role to educate the customers on why this is this discount and not that,
Yes, absolutely.
Eric, how do you see the future of C&I in Southeast Asia?
I think it's growing, but it will be moving into self-consumption methods where they're going to use for self-consume. Is there because the electricity bill is keep going up. I think if you're looking into the past 6 months, everywhere is shooting up. None of them are actually going low. Regarding the price understanding of how the PV panels or even inverters or all the materials, I think the consumer need to take away or wash it away the 2019 where the price keep dropping. I think they're still stuck in that level where they will assume that in 2020 and 2021 the price is even going to go lower, and coming to 2022 the price is going to even go lower. I think they're still in 2019 where the price during that period of time it really drops, but then throughout the past few years the price has been keep going up. Hopefully, like what Bundim mentioned, is that hopefully it can be stable. But to predict the price, whether it's going to be going up or not, I think we only can see within 3 months' time. So again, the C&I market here, I think is booming. It can boom because there's a lot of new infrastructure coming up. There's a lot of new factories coming up. There's a lot of demand for the Asia country. So there will be a need and there will be a growth. Yeah.
Well, I guess
Milan sir, are you there with us? I believe he is having some network issues.
Yeah.
By the time, can we start with the Q&A session? I will just, you can select which question is to be answered by who. So if you see, the first question is, Milan sir is back with us. Sir, so you are on mute.
Sorry, guys. I wanted to ask some last question to Bunlim. Are we going to see panel prices back at 2019 level?
I seriously, I don't think in the short term we will see that. Yeah, this for the next 6 months, don't have that forecast.
12 months?
12 months is hard to say.
18? All right, good.
I hope I have the
Okay.
crystal ball too, but no.
Thanks, everyone. Back to Priyanshi for questions. I see there is some Q&A. Priyanshi, please.
Yes, sir. So the first question is from Mr. Romeo, and he is asking, how much do you think is the solar capacity for C&I in the Philippines for residential? So who would like to take this up?
I think Lorenzo, if you need to, please go.
For
ahead.
residential is a very different market in the sense that residential is a self-investment and is very fragmented. I wouldn't have a number for that, frankly speaking, because it's a huge number of very small projects. Typically, the markets where residential has developed a lot is the market where the government in some form has provided subsidies or feed-in tariffs, which is not on the cards for the moment for the Philippines. But otherwise, I don't have a number for the residential market. I'm sorry.
Yeah, I guess next question. It's really unpredictable
so
what's the
next-
number. It's very insignificant, the number. It's probably 10, 20 megawatt. I guess it's we don't know it.
Can I move on to the next question, sir?
Matthew is asking if we're expecting boom in the region following China no longer financing coal, Ukraine invasion, price of gas and coal. I think Eric mentioned a little bit about this, but anyone, please feel free to take over this question.
Yeah, well, I mean, like we mentioned, I think one side effect of the increase in the cost of coal or of gas because of the unavailability of the cost of coal of gas is that the electricity price is going to go up. The grid electricity price is going to go up. So that will probably make solar rooftop even more attractive. It's difficult because it's very fragmented. I mean, there are different cost structure for the generation companies, country by country, but overall, yeah, definitely, because across the region, still the bulk of electricity that is generated either by coal or gas, and that's not going to change anytime soon. I mean, at utility level, and that's not going to change anytime soon. So definitely, the increase in the price of the raw materials will bring up also the price of electricity, and that will make alternatives more attractive.
Thanks. Samresh, Vinod is asking when PDP 8 will be approved.
If I knew that, I would make a lot of money. But actually, I think just last evening, like yesterday, there was a draft, draft, proposed by the government. Probably it is the final draft. There are comments expected from the public. The plan is that in the next 60 days, hopefully a circular would be would be released, and we hope it would be released by then.
Perfect. Okay, Philippines again. Sandeep, Philippines has no net export. What is the panel solution on this? I guess the question is, what do you do with excess electricity in Philippines? Do you do something with it?
No. Not do anything with it. No, exactly. It's curtailment. It's considered curtailment basically, and you can't export to the grid, and so you need to size the system accordingly in practice. You know what it's like. I mean, it's the same to some extent in Vietnam now. It's not a big deal if you have more or less continual operation 6 days a week, for instance, or in any case, we have been doing solarizing a lot of malls, for example, in the Philippines, because malls have 7 days a week operation. And even if they might be closed on some days, they have, in any case, cold storage, or they have some operations which eat up everything that they can generate. But otherwise, yes, it's a concern, because it means that Sundays and public holidays, typically the factory is not consuming the energy that can be generated, and it gets lost, or it's consuming only a small part of it.
And what do you think is the total installation capacity in Philippines, C&I? Romeo is asking.
That's also a very, very difficult question. I mean, it's in terms of rooftop, it's very big, of roof space, let's say. In terms of what is economically viable, that's a completely different question, because Philippines, as opposed to Vietnam or Indonesia, does not have that many big industrial concerns or big corporates. And a lot of the roofs are not in very good condition, because they were not designed for 30 or 40 years operation typically, except in certain circumstances. So what is the potential market in terms of acres of square roofs of roofs is pretty big, but what is actually commercially viable is much smaller, I think.
Perfect. Priyanshi, we're done. Thank you, everyone. I go play Minecraft with my daughter.
Thank you so much, sir. Thank you all the esteemed panelists for the wonderful and very special thanks to Milan, sir, for superbly managing the session as always. It is a great pleasure to have you all. And thank you all the attendees for extending the time and support. We promise to come back with more such exciting topics. Thanks a lot, everyone.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Bye-bye.
Thank you. Bye. Take care,
Bye.
everyone.
Bye-bye.